So an HR breaking point, it could be different, but for each company. But I think ultimately it gets to a point where you get to a certain size, and your organization, you probably have an owner or an ops person or an office manager that's handling these issues, and ultimately it's going to get this to a point where it's just unmanageable for somebody who's not full time. And I think it gets to the question at the heart of the issue, which is, hey, I'm an employer. I've gotten to that size. I've got real risk and real HR challenges, and then also real needs from an HR perspective. Do I build something to support this, or do I buy something? And I think if you're under two, 300 employees, but especially if you're 10 to 50 employees, uh, you know, I mean, maybe hiring a more entry-level general HR generalist is a good solution. But even if you hire that individual, you're going to need additional HR support. So I think really the breaking point is, hey, do I build or buy, right? Because my HR requirements have become so significant that I now need to either hire somebody to do this or pay somebody to do this externally. And I think that's really the breaking point, and that's really the decision, right? To PEO or not to PEO. And frankly, I think any small employer, especially under 50 employees, should evaluate the PEO space and the PEO option at least once a year or every other year to determine whether or not it's the right solution at that point in time. I think in years past, employers would typically look for something that could be a long-term solution. I think in today's day and age, some of those solutions, just long-term solutions, really aren't out there. So you really need to think about the short term and what are you going to do this year, and then we'll figure out what we can do next year. But having a PEO as a partner gives you much longer runway to achieve size and scale, to where you may get to that point where you have 250 or 500 employees and you can start to build your own HR department, right? But before that, buying and outsourcing is a much more effective, faster, and reliable option. Plus, you get access to the benefits. So to me, the breaking point really comes to when HR starts to get too much for that owner operator, for that the CFO or controller at that point in time, and they really need to make a decision about building or buying. And to me, I think for the small employer, buying that solution or outsourcing that solution is really the right fit.